views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, those who are economically disadvantaged aren't fortunate enough to have the monies to hire a private attorney. Luckily, the Bronx Defenders office is available to help those in our community who are seeking help with the justice system but have nowhere else to turn. Next up, divorce is difficult both emotionally and financially. What will happen with respect to custody as well as your home are just a few of the issues you will have to deal with. Well, we look into this area of family law and help you come out the other side with some sense of sanity. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. All right, hello. Welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. While Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected, make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict and check us out at bronxnet.tv. Well, the criminal justice system can be very difficult to navigate, especially for those who do not have the proper resources. The Bronx Defenders educate people on issues concerning the criminal justice system while attempting to improve their outcomes through various legal means. Joining us today are Reentry and Community Outreach Coordinator Wesley Keynes and law graduate Sharitza Lopez Rodriguez. Hello there.
Hi, David.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Wes, nice having you back.
Yes, a pleasure to be here.
It's been a while. Okay, let's refresh the public a little bit about the Bronx Defenders Office. Let's talk a little bit about what the organization does.
Sure. So the Bronx Defenders, for those who don't know, is a public defender organization. We are primarily funded by the city to provide indigent defense. So poor Bronx residents who are charged with criminal offenses can be assigned to the Bronx Defenders for representation. What's unique about us is that we practice a form of public defense that we coined called holistic defense. So what does that mean? It means that when someone is assigned to us through criminal proceedings against them, they have a battery of professionals that are available to assist them. So we have social workers, we have immigration specialists, we have a multitude of disciplines available to assist them. We have a holistic system. We see people as not just integral to their communities, but then also having complex enough lives that simply addressing the criminal matter may not be enough to stabilize.
Because there's so much more involved.
Absolutely.
And then that offense. I mean, there's family, there's maybe
there's
psychiatric
housing,
issues. There's so many things
there's
involved.
children, there's employment. So we look to help to stabilize in all of those areas.
So, Sharitza, tell me how it works. Say, I was being charged with a crime and I can't seem to find representation because I don't have the money. Where am I going? Am I walking into a storefront? I mean, tell me how it works.
Right, so just like Wesley was mentioning, usually the person will have an attorney appointed to them during arraignments, right? That would be either the Bronx Defenders, Legal Aid, or if there's a conflict, 18B, right? But there are folks who don't go through arraignments and have, let's say, a disappearance ticket. We have what we call community intake, and they could just walk through our doors and they will be seen by someone that day.
By the way, these doors, you mean?
To our office.
Where is that, by the way?
So that's 360 East 161st Street. We're a couple of blocks down from criminal court.
Okay, so when they walk in and they come in there, are they bringing documents with them from the criminal court, the disappearance ticket? Are you giving them a whole, array of things to fill out? What are they really dealing with when they walk through the doors?
No, the way it works, we oftentimes have folks who say, I know I got a ticket, I misplaced it, I don't know when is my court date, I don't even know if there's a warrant out for my arrest, and we have one of our intake personnel look up in the system.
How do they find out that you even exist? Do you understand what I mean? How do they even know there's a Bronx Defenders that may be able to, and I know we're obviously, this is great that we have you on, but assuming they didn't see this, how do they even know there's a Bronx Defenders that may be able to come in for them when legal aid doesn't come in for that kind of case? Like, how do they know?
I think oftentimes, you know, people either will Google, but we are a staple in the community, right? And so oftentimes is also by word of mouth. I've had folks come in and say, hey, my cousin said that, you know, they've received help here and they're coming in. So I think that's the part that we are part of the community, because we do so much more than just representation in court, that folks will tell family members and friends.
Wesley, let's talk about some of the low-level offenses that I'm sure that your organization would like to eliminate. It could be everything from marijuana possession to whatever. What is it that you seem to see walking through the doors that you're basically hoping at some point is no longer a crime?
Sure. So, well, one particular area that's in the media now a lot over the past 2 electoral cycles is marijuana legalization.
Okay.
And we definitely support that. We think that folks would have criminal records which has consequences moving forward for them simply for having possessed a joint, or sometimes less than a joint, doesn't make a lot of sense. We've seen a lot of effort made by the local district attorneys to limit the scope of prosecution for jumping the turnstile. That's something that we would like to see eliminated totally.
How about, I'm curious about, let's say, buses. You know, sometimes people are going onto the buses without the Metro cards, they're going through the back. Are those offenses, are they getting are you getting desk appearance tickets for those as well, or is that something that maybe people are looking the other way?
Well, that's actually handled differently by transit.
Oh, it is?
So what will happen is you'll get a TAB ticket, a Transit Adjudication Bureau ticket, which requires someone to go to Brooklyn to defend the action that they're alleged to have
Do
done.
you have it get involved in that, or no?
No, we haven't seen a lot of those
You
in
have
our
not?
office. We have not, no.
Okay.
But those can generate tickets in the system, in the transit system, for individuals who don't appear in Brooklyn to address those tickets.
So what's happening with the let's say the marijuana possession? Are the courts starting to look the other way, or are the police officers just not giving you the ticket to begin with, or are they just giving you a ticket and say, I don't know, don't bother, it's not such a big deal? How does it really work?
Well, there's a myriad of responses by both police and local prosecutors around possession of marijuana. And we've seen that there's been an increase in desk appearance tickets that are given as opposed to being processed through the arraignment system through to central booking. Many of the local district attorneys have stated publicly that they're reducing their prosecution they're declining to prosecute marijuana possession cases. We still see people who come through arraignments with those charges, and we still definitely see desk appearance tickets with them.
Sure, so let me ask you a question. Domestic violence, are you seeing that? Are you seeing women who are coming through the doors, or sorry, men actually, who would be accused of domestic violence, or maybe even women? Are you seeing that as well? Because those aren't really necessarily desk appearance tickets. That's a little bit of a higher threshold in terms of what you're being accused of. Are you seeing any of that?
We do see those.
You do.
And because we also represent parents in family court, those are more complex cases, right? And so oftentimes we have clients that might have a case in criminal court, but also might have a case in family court. And then for our civil practice, right, oftentimes we have folks who are in the shelter system. And when we're talking about DV cases, that could result in the family being split in the shelter system, and they cannot live together. So out of that one incident, you see a trickle effect of other issues.
I know,
come
Wesley,
up.
you were talking about the holistic approach.
Right.
How many people can be involved with one particular offense? I mean, could you have more than 3?
We operate in interdisciplinary teams, and our teams range anywhere from 18 to 22 or 23 people. So these are attorney professionals, these are social work professionals, these are other paraprofessionals who work to really assist and stabilize our clients. So it could be anywhere from the 22 people on your given team to reaching out to other teams to get more support. So literally, when someone is a client of the Bronx Defenders, they have over 300 advocates working for them.
And do you seem to be well received by the court system? I mean, are judges happy to see the Bronx Defender showing up there and as an advocate? I mean, or do they feel, don't take this personally, that you're a nuisance and that you're making things tougher for them, for the judges to be able to administer justice in the borough? What do you say?
Well, I guess that's a question you would have to ask a judge.
Okay.
I do believe that the Bronx Defenders are respected for the work that we do and the compassion with which we do it. I think that's across the board, judges, court staff, as well as the Bronx
Well,
District
the people
Attorney's
of the Bronx are
Office.
very happy to have you.
Yeah,
I'm just hoping there's
definitely.
no too much pushback
Definitely.
the other way. All right, let's get into this Community Day of Justice. Saturday, October 27th, 2018. Tell us about the event. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure, that was our last Community Day of Justice event. We have those events quarterly. We've been doing them now for almost a year. They're just a way to build community knowledge and competence around various legal issues and rights that community members have, but may not be particularly informed on. So we do different workshops across different areas.
By the way, this
Yes.
one was held at the 4101 White Plains Road.
Yes.
Are most of your, I guess, public forums or meetings at the same place, or do they vary in different places?
They vary. Sometimes we have them in our office in that reception space at 360 161st Street. And then sometimes we partner with local organizations, or in this case, our local elected official, Speaker Carl Hasty from
Sure.
the district where we held
Who's
the
really
event.
been wonderful for the
Yes,
community.
absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the services offered, because this is just reading from it. It says, obtaining your rap sheet and removing errors, applying for certificates of relief or good conduct, job seeking under the Fair Chance Act, sealing old convictions. I mean, these are great things.
Absolutely.
Is the public taking you up on this? Are they showing up? Are they?
They have.
They have
At
them.
every one of those events, we have very eager and enthusiastic community members who come out and say, hey, I have this issue, I have this case that goes back 10, 15, 20 years, which continues to hamper my ability to move forward. Can you help with this? And sometimes we'll pull their record with their consent and find out that this shouldn't even be on their record, because rap sheets have error rate of
Sure.
above 40%.
I like this one. Police
Yeah.
know your rights. What are my rights if a police officer starts a conversation with me, detains me, arrests me? People should know what their rights are.
Absolutely.
Very, very
Absolutely.
important. Tell me,
Absolutely.
what's coming up? This was in the past. What else do you
Yes.
have? What's coming up? Anything?
Well, we're
new?
currently working on our next Community Day of Justice event. Not exactly sure when the date will be, but we always look to partner with local organizations and elected officials. So I'll let you know as soon as we
And
have a
sh-
date set.
And Schritz, before we
Yes.
let you go, any tips or anything you want to let the community know in terms of your organization, things that they should know if somebody's watching right now, they're not sure what to do, they have an appearance ticket, they're nervous, what would you tell them?
I will always tell everybody that we are a resource in the community and not to be hesitant to just walk in the door. You don't have to call beforehand, you don't have to make an appointment, and it doesn't hurt to ask.
And what would you like to see in terms of this year, okay, for the organization? What's the biggest change you'd like to see, or something in the law, or something that's passionate to you that you'd like to see more of with respect to the Bronx Defenders?
I think one of the things that we've also been pushing in terms of just reform in terms of criminal court and how cases are being heard and expedited. I think because we come from the civil practice point of view, we see how people are affected in terms of employment, housing, because of case delays. And so I think that's something that as an organization we want to see change, but also for us in terms of our clients' self-advocacy for them.
Well, we're going to have you back, hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, and we'll see if it's happened.
Thank you, David.
Absolutely. Thank
Thanks
you for
being
having
here.
us.
It's my
Thank you.
pleasure. Thanks for coming back. We have to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host, David Lesch. We are always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at Today's Verdict. We don't have to tell you that divorce is an extremely stressful event, but you can avoid many of the issues that arise years before you decide to call your marriage quits. We'll learn more about the different options when it comes to divorce with attorney Darren Blyer. Darren, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into how you can avoid even the fighting that goes on with in divorce court, let's talk about the two different types of divorces. You have, right, uncontested, and you have the contested. Let's talk about a little bit about both of them.
So there's a very simple difference between uncontested and contested divorce. If you're walking through the courthouse door, you have a contested divorce.
And if it's uncontested, you could do it in a lawyer's office, a mediator, or somewhere else.
That's right. I mean, you can even try to do it yourself. There are DIY forms. You can go on the court website. There's actually a lot of helpful information on the court website. It is not easy to do the paperwork yourself. In fact, for attorneys who don't do matrimonial law, it can be really difficult. Even for attorneys who do matrimonial law, sometimes it can be a little difficult. Sometimes you get surprised. Sometimes there's a new language that has to go into a judgment divorce, and you have to keep up with that and make sure you know.
What do you see with respect to contested divorces? Is it the custody issue? Is it the financial issue? Or is it always both?
It can be either. It can be both. It can just be that you have two people who are they're just butting heads. You know, sometimes you can sit in a courtroom and you can see two litigants who both are unrepresented. They've come into court, and the judge goes, "There is nothing here to divide," but they've come in there just because they can't even agree on how to do the paperwork.
How to do the paperwork. It seems to me that what would be the most stressful is when there are children involved and there's custody issues.
Absolutely.
In the past, men felt that, they didn't necessarily get the same type of treatment that the women were getting in the courthouse in terms of being able to get at least shared custody. Has that completely changed? Because I know it was on the way where it didn't matter whether you were male or female, you were given the opportunity to have shared custody, equal shared custody. Is that still happening?
I will tell you, I get people calling all the time wondering, is a judge going to be biased against me because I'm a man? You might have a mother thinking, well, I should get custody because I'm mom.
Right.
In my experience, judges don't care what's between your legs. They care what's between your ears.
That's the most important thing, isn't it?
That's it. They want to know that you're making good decisions for these children. That's really what it comes down to. It's about decision making.
What affects the custody? What affects a judge deciding, I'm going to give you 2 days a week and I'm going to give he or she 5 days a week? Like, how does that work? Or every other weekend? Like, what makes them decide who's a fit parent, who's not a fit parent. Like I always, because I don't do this kind of work, so I kind of wonder what goes through some of the judges' minds and how they finally make this decision.
So there's a presumption when parents walk in that they're both fit parents. Nobody's sitting here saying somebody, just looking at them, they're not fit. It comes down to so many different factors. First off, there's just logistics. Do these parents live in the same place? You might have one parent who lives in New York, the other one might live in California, or they might even just live 2 hours away. Well, how are you going to split the time with a child when you live 2 hours away? The child has to get to school.
What happens when one person, let's say that it's either the terms of the divorce or there's even been a divorce, and one person wants to leave? This happens all the time. One spouse wants to leave the jurisdiction of, let's say, New York and move to Florida, and they want to take a child with them, but they can't because the child has ties to the community and schools and grandparents. What happens there? Do you reapply to the court? Do you try and make some kind of application?
Yeah, I mean, I always would encourage two parents to try and work it out together. Speak with attorneys, see if you can come up with something. You can always modify your agreement or enter into a new agreement. If you never had an agreement, you just have a judgment, you can enter into an agreement. And you can change the visitation schedule that you have. You can have it where one parent has a child during the school year, the other parent has a child the majority of the summer and during the long breaks. You can work those things out. If you do want to move and have the child live in a different jurisdiction, you would need to make an application to the court if you can't work it out.
It's very interesting because I was just looking at something online the other day about a celebrity. I think her name was Nicole Curtis might be, and she was in some type of program where she fixes up houses. She's gotten divorced, and she wants to be able to bring the child to her own home on, let's say, Easter or Thanksgiving, even though it's not her particular time to be able to have the child over, but she wants the ex-spouse to come over too. And the ex-spouse is like, I don't want to come over. All right? I like the way it is. I like it separate, and sometimes the other parent says, well, why can't we still be a happy family just for purposes of holidays? And it doesn't always work out that way.
Well, one of the things that we tell people is if you love somebody, let them go.
Right. Can't be one big happy family after a divorce sometimes.
Yeah, and really, children, in my experience, children just don't want to see their parents fighting. It's not, people fight over time, they go, oh, it has to be equal time, or I need this amount of time. Your kid's not counting the hours.
Now, we could avoid a lot of the issues and problems that arise, unfortunately, if you're in a contested divorce, with a prenup.
Yep.
Please tell us, Darren, what a prenup is.
I am a big fan of prenups, and I'm actually seeing a big uptick, especially amongst millennials. So what I tell everybody is, you have a prenup when you get married. It's called the law. You just don't know what you've entered into. And it's about this thick, and that's just the domestic relations law. That doesn't include all the case law, which would fill up the studio. So you can pretty much agree to anything that isn't against the law or against public policy.
Well, I know the one big thing is, from what I remember, you can't put into the prenup, what you're going to raise the children that you don't have yet in terms of religion. That always a big issue. Catholicism, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it is. You can't put that into a prenup. You don't have children yet, so that's an issue. But there are so many things you can take care of.
Sure.
And certainly financially, this is mine, it stays mine.
Absolutely.
This is yours, it stays yours.
Absolutely. And you can have different triggering events. You can have it where things change once there is a child. Well, maybe now, maybe you waived maintenance, but now once you're saying, look, if we have a child and I'm going to stay home and raise the child, and we divorce 10 years later, I've been out of the workforce for 10 years. It's been really hard for me to find a job.
The prenup, would you recommend getting this done as quickly as possible, I guess, once you're engaged? Because I guess I would assume the closer you're getting to that wedding day, the more contentious it may be and the more stressful it is for you anyway.
And more importantly, if you're signing it right before your wedding,
some duress going on there.
That's right. That's it. So there's some concerns.
Have there been cases that say you put that in front of her or him 48 hours before you were walking down the aisle?
Yeah.
And of course they're going to sign it. All their family's coming to the wedding. That's not enforceable. It rips it up.
You can have that. You want to try and get it done as early as possible for a number of reasons. One is that. The other one is try to enjoy planning your wedding.
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend tell me, but it's so not romantic. Of course it's not romantic. Planning your finances isn't romantic.
Right.
Certainly doing a prenup isn't romantic, but you know what? You're entering into a contract. You have a financial partnership you're entering into.
Any tips you want to give to somebody, and I'm not just talking about the prenup, but any tips that you may want to give to somebody who's going through a very rough patch and it looks like they're heading to divorce? It's happening. What would you tell them to do?
I would tell them the two people you probably want to reach out to would be a therapist and an attorney.
So you're saying marriage counseling or individual therapy?
I think it depends on the individual and where you're at. I mean, if you want to keep your marriage going, which
most people do.
Most people do. You want to try.
Why would you go into it without
Right.
wanting to keep it going?
You know, it's really common to see that one person leaves the marriage long before the other one does. You know, usually one spouse is very surprised. You know,
And the other one just...
and the other one...
One foot was out the door for a long time.
Yeah, and they've been sending signals, but maybe they haven't been received, or you
haven't been spending enough time with me. You're not, you've been traveling. I'm just not happy, or there's an affair or something else that's going on.
Yeah, you know, and I think that, you know, people make a really, it's, maybe I became cynical doing this, you know, but I look at adultery and I go, you know, adultery is almost a symptom.
Of something else that's wrong.
Yeah, most people didn't start off going, I'm looking to cheat. Some people do, but, you know, I think for most people...
Are the prenups well received when you suggest them to the clients who come into the office?
Most people only come to me if
after
it's done,
over, it's finished,
or if they know that they want one. But I will tell you, I think it's interesting. Millennials really have started to get more interested and start to take prenups seriously, and I'm seeing more come in. In fact, I had one come in the other day who told me she went to a wedding expo, and one of the vendors said, "Oh, did you pick out your photographer, your flowers, or anything?" She goes, "The only thing I have picked out is my lawyer."
My prenup, right. Where do we find you, by the way? Very important. If somebody wants to reach out to you, let's get some information.
646-421-6505. I'm at Greenberg, Bryant, and Blyer. We're in Manhattan, but we're throughout the city, Westchester, Long Island.
Thanks for coming. And you're going to come back, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and, of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at www.bronxnet.tv. Also, remember, if there is a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Listen, for myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict, and have a very happy holiday. I'll see you soon.